Let's talk about the Marvel brand because it's really not as strong as it used to be. I'm going to go over some stuff and show you a few things that's going on with their video games and their comics because some of the stuff that I said was going to happen has begun. So I want to get into that. Let's start with something a little bit more positive, though. Hugh Jackman to appear in Marvel's Cinematic Universe potentially returns as Wolverine. Now, this is interesting. This would, of course, more than likely be a cameo in the Doctor Strange movie. I think it's called The Multiverse of Madness. And the big rumor is that they're going to try to make all of the movies that have come before there was a unified MCU, canon through a multiverse, which I think is a pretty good idea. In some ways, it's kind of copying what DC is doing, but I don't care. I like the idea of seeing some of my old favorite characters come back. This one would be interesting because Hugh Jackman has been pretty clear he's not coming back. But I think for something like this, he might do it. Will he come back to work in the MCU again? No. I think that would be a mistake. It's clearly time to change the character's actor over when you consider Hugh Jackman's no spring chicken. Okay, you need somebody that can at least play the character for 10 or 15 years. By the time he got done, he'd be like 70 years old. It's just not a good idea. And we're not trying to do old man Logan. We want the real Logan running around. So there's an offer that went out apparently on a Marvel spreadsheet that was captured. Here's a screenshot from it. See 9/10/2020 offer out to Hugh Jackman. This would likely mean this is likely for the Doctor Strange movie. Whether or not he'll accept it or not, I don't know. I think it would be cool. It'd probably only be a few minutes. I doubt he's going to have a huge role in the movie. Also, in some ways, it would kind of downplay Logan. So, I don't know. I think it would be cool if it's done good, if it can make sense. So, there's that. Let's go right into this, which was fantastic to see. This broke yesterday. Square Enix reports $48 million loss following release of underperforming Marvel's Avengers. This is, of course, the game that came out for every platform, I think, except the Switch. And it's a disaster. It sold terribly. They lost $48 million on it. Now, according to this source, David Gibson, Square Enix reported yen 6.5 billion loss for HD games driven by Marvel Avengers. Would not say how many sold, but that volumes were 60% of plan. Implies game cost over $100 million to make, but only sold $3 million or so. Ouch. Marvel's Avengers, it looks like the total cost of the game is closer to $170 million to $190 million, given they only expenses, that's probably a typo from Twitter there, but they only expenses 70% of cost in the quarter plus marketing costs. Why someone didn't say stop post the multiplayer beta remain a mystery. Square Enix, they can remake that up. Yeah, they can make that recovery, huh? Sure. Lots of problems with this game. If anything, to me, this also shows the weakness of the Marvel brand that you couldn't sell this game. I'm really mixed on this. So the multiplayer, a lot of people actually like. It's kind of like a Destiny Light, if you've ever played Destiny. It's a grinder. It's designed to make you, want to go after loot stuff, like an addiction. That's what Destiny runs on. A lot of these games, really interesting. They get a lot of psychologists to come in and help them like flesh out the reward factories. They get you to come back over and over again for like an addiction. Destiny has people on staff, I believe, that help them do that. I would imagine that that's probably a thing everywhere now where they have multiplayer games. But anyway, this game should have been a huge hit, especially given the popularity of video games. Video games are very popular. If you can do a good comic book game nowadays, the licensing stigma that used to hurt games is gone. Like we've had games like Spider-Man and so on and so on, Batman, Arkham games. These games are all fantastic. They really raised the bar for what it means to be a comic book video game. But this game did a lot of things wrong, okay? First off, they made Miss Marvel the main character, which was a disaster from day one. That character is not popular. That's not a driving force, okay? It looked like you were just going to play as her. You weren't going to get to play as any of the Avengers you liked. Of course, that wasn't totally the case, especially for multiplayer, but Kamala Khan's just not very popular. Obviously, not something you should shoulder a $200 million game on, but they chose to go that way. Now, to be fair, from what I remember, okay, if you remember, what is that game? It's the terrible Marvel versus Capcom game, the last one that kind of killed the franchise. There were some leaks that came out when people were talking about the failure of that game. I don't know, there's no sort of leaks, but interviews with people that worked at Capcom said that, Marvel's notoriously hard to work with. They tell you who you can and can't have in the game. It was likely Marvel themselves that said, you have to make Kamala Khan the hero of the game, because they drive that. They're very, very hands-on, from what I understand from the Capcom interviews, and they pretty much dictate who's going to be in it and what. So the fact that Kamala Khan was the lead was probably them. Now, the mistake there is that character is just not very popular. If you can somehow make her popular, sure. Like they're making, if that character is ever going to become popular, it will be off the Disney Plus show that's coming. Then making that character center stage in Avengers game, maybe that would work a little bit better, but this was just not the point or the time. Plus, they had some really weird people in marketing. I know I've made fun of this. They had the Inhuman in the wheelchair, and they made that like a shining moment for the game. Like, this is what's going to drive sales. Shit like that isn't going to drive sales. What you need to do is have Thor smashing stuff with his hammer, Hulk throwing a car at something. Maybe Steve Rogers standing there, like giving a get 'em signal with his hand, Avengers Assemble. Like, stuff like that's going to sell a game. Okay? Not a wheelchaired Inhuman. But this is where we're at, and this is what they think works in marketing, and that's what killed the game. They really wanted to push that Kamala Khan factor, and a lot of people are scratching their heads saying, who the hell is Kamala Khan? Because her books don't sell. Her books don't sell. So I'm not surprised. And let's also throw in the fact that this game launched pretty freaking broken. Okay, it needed like 1,000 patches to get it kind of running good, from what I understand. And that's for sure a reason why this game failed. So that's a lot of money to lose right there. $48 million, and you put in a lot of money, almost $200 million. I don't know. I don't see you making that money up. This game's kind of old news. You've got new consoles coming out. You've got the new cycle of Christmas where there's so many big games coming out. This game's done. It's forgotten. And this is just as much on Marvel, but putting so much push on Kamala Khan, who wasn't that annoying in the game, by the way. Not like she is in the comics. I'd say this is the best representation of that character that I've seen, but it still didn't work. I understand the point that they wanted to make a protagonist, to have the game focused on, because it's hard to do a group. She just wasn't the character. It would have been better to pick a different, younger person in the MCU if that's the route you want to go. One that's a little bit more popular, which maybe Miles Morales, actually. He's young. He's a lot more popular. Just had a popular movie with him. That would have been a much, much, much better pick for the lead character of this game, but they didn't do that. Anyway, let's move on to the final story that I want to cover here, and that's Marvel Comics joins Disney in making staffers redundant. This is a big deal, okay? And I talked about this a while ago. I talked about how Disney was bringing the knife, okay? They're in the same boat that AT&T Warner is, and the fact that they just don't have the money anymore. Marvel Comics very much has benefited from the fact that the MCU movies are successful. Not so much in sales, but in the fact that, hey, let's keep this around for a cool brand. It's not really killing our pocketbooks that badly. So they just kind of let them do whatever the hell they wanted for, 10 years now. And the problem there is they've just been throwing shit at a wall and saying, okay, what sticks? It's literally how they do things. They just throw crap at a wall, and if it sticks, they sell it. And it hurts comic shops, it hurts the industry, and it's just not a good strategy. They put a lot of garbage out. The fact that Captain Marvel can just keep rebooting in the new books is a big example of that. So I see a lot of similarities. So DC Comics got totally reorganized. They fired a lot of people, and they've put their focus more in their top-selling books and Scholastic. I could see Marvel doing the same thing. They're trying to do it, but they're not really jumping all in. I think Marvel Comics is going to get reorganized. I think you're going to see a lot of the big people like C.B. Cebulski fired and replaced. Everybody but Sana Anamanat. She's not going anywhere. She's not going anywhere. That's their head propagandist, by the way. You're going to see a lot of the staff fired. I think you're going to see them do what DC is doing. I think they're going to bring in a lot of Hollywood writers and animators to draw and write the comics and give them work. And I think a lot of the people that work there, unless they're a big, big name and they're cheap, and Marvel is cheap, and they can get them cheap, they're gone. You're going to see a lot more people like, what's that name, Vita Avala, the very, very overworked and under-talented writer. She's going to get a lot more work for well, you know why. Anyway, they're done. Marvel is going to be reorganized and cut deeply, just like DC Comics was. What they call it, the DC Comics bloodbath. Well, get ready for the Marvel Comics bloodbath. That's coming for sure. And it's already started. Their longtime publisher, John Nee, has been removed. So has Judy Stevens, though I think she did more work outside of comics. The point is the brand, the comics brand, the entertainment side is what I think that's what they call. They have Marvel Studios and they have Marvel Entertainment. Unless I think they did change the names and the way they do that because Kevin Feige oversees everything. But my point is there's deep cuts coming to Marvel. December 10th is D-Day for a lot of these people because that's the day that Disney is going to come out and really outline a lot of the stuff they're going to do. And I expect the knife is going to twist deep into Marvel Comics, and they're going to really, really lose a lot of people. And good, they deserve it. They did nothing to try to make money for the company, and I think they're going to be reorganized into something they think will make money, like DC Comics did. The problem is DC Comics is doing some really weird things that I don't know if will actually make them money. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments below. Do you think the cuts are coming? How do you feel about Marvel's Avengers? How do you feel about the Wolverine rumor? Let me know what you guys think. Also, if you would, please share and like the video. Make sure you still subscribe. Subscribe if you're new. Hit that notification bell, and I will see you on the next one. Peace. Also, if you want to help support the channel, check out my Teespring store. There's a link in the description. You can find some merchandise in there that you might want to check out.